Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Alana and today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of February 2022. Now, I'm very surprised and happy to say that I finished a total of 8 books in the month, and this was probably due to some carryover books from the month before that I was halfway through, or also with the formats that I was consuming as well. There's a couple of graphic novels and some audiobooks, but overall, that's a great number. So first up, I'm just going to mention the book that I'm currently still reading, which I started in February, but will be a carryover book into March, and that is The Unspoken Name by A.K. Larkwood. I am loving this. This is giving me Wheel of Time mixed with June vibes, and love it. It's fantasy, but it's other worlds as well, so that's where that June vibe's kind of coming in, and it's also fate, assassins, relentlessness, consequences. I'm loving it so much. So I am at page 426 of, let's see, 557, which looks about that far in, so it's going along really well. It is taking me a little bit longer, but that's also because it is an epic fantasy novel, so I'm appreciating it and I'm taking my time with it. Now, to start the official wrap up, I'm going to start off with the 2 carryover books from the month before, and that is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel and Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. To start off with this one, this took me a big old chunk of time to get through. I'm glad that I got through it, and I will continue with this series, but it took a lot of brain power because the prose style in this one is quite different to what I'm used to. This one is set in the time of King Henry VIII's reign, and we follow Thomas Cromwell as he begins to become someone influential within King Henry's circle. It is historical fiction. It is quite long. We're looking at over 600 pages, and I can understand how this was the Man Booker Prize winner and why it is as popular as it is. I did enjoy it. I really did. It just took a while to get through. What I mean by a different prose style as well is the fact that this is through Thomas Cromwell's point of view, but the author doesn't baby you either, so she will refer to the main character as he or him a lot, and sometimes it's not quite clear who's speaking, but once you get into the flow and the prose style of it, it makes it easier to read. So this one I actually started out with the audiobook for like the first 50 odd pages to get into it, into the style of it, and then from there I picked up the physical one, and I think that was a really good way to go with it because I did end up enjoying it. I do also think that the last quarter kind of dragged for me, but I do love looking into the history of this time, so I'll continue with it for sure, but it did get 3.5 stars from me because of the prose every now and again, even though it was very strong. It's just not what I was used to, and also the last quarter kind of taking a little while to get through. But a good one, niche, but good. Then we have Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. This one I listened to the audiobook of, and it was a pretty long audiobook, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I also found with this one that the pacing was not what I was expecting, because this has the trope of a book within a book. So it starts off with the editor at this publishing house saying, here's what I was given, and you're about to find out, and things get weird, and then you go into the story that she was editing. And then about halfway through, it pulls you back out of the book that she's editing and into that series of events as well. So very smart of this author to have been able to pull this off so thoroughly. Essentially, they were working with 2 different mysteries that they had to meet back up and all tie together within the novel, and just props to them for being able to do that, because that is insane. It was so good. This is also the first book of Anthony Horowitz's that I've ever read, and I'm pleased to say I will be continuing on. I think there's another one in this series, Moonflower Murders or something like that. The cover's going to be here as well. I just know that the next one is blue and the one I read was red, so I'm keen for it. I'm happy to keep on going. The audiobook was also really enjoyable and I gave it 4 stars. Next up, we pivot to something that I don't usually consume. By that I mean genre specific, and that is a self-development book. It's the very popular Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I saw this one come up on my Libby app, which is the app I use to listen to all my audiobooks. It essentially runs through your local library, so you only need to have a library card to access free ebooks, audiobooks, all of that. But I saw this one come up on the app and I thought this is one that I should read for work because we sell a lot of copies of this book and I wanted to kind of be across it. And yeah, I don't typically read this genre. I know I should read more of it just to be more across the genre, and it's one that I could step into a little bit more and make more of an effort with. But I think this was a good place to start. I really enjoyed this one. It surprised me. I gave it 4 stars. It was very profound, and essentially it's a compilation of short little stories and moments from the author's life and what she's learnt from them and how it impacts her daily life and her family, her situation. It's very much about stepping into your own power and realizing your own potential, and yeah, I enjoyed it. It did surprise me. The audiobook also wasn't very long, so it was easy to consume and a good one to start off with in a genre that I'm not overly familiar with. So yeah, I can see why people are enjoying this, and I will definitely be recommending this one at work. It's an easy one to cross-suggest as well. You could pull bits from it that could relate to so many different scenarios. So happy to say I did enjoy it. Next up, we have The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, another really popular book. This is contemporary romance, and this I asked for Christmas. So again, super proud of myself for actually reading a book close to when I got it. And I think this one also got 4 stars. This one came on my radar because I've seen a lot of people on Instagram rave about it, and also because it got its movie adaptation in December 2021. I watched the trailer for that, it looked really cute, and I'm excited to watch the movie now too, now that I have consumed the source material. In this one, we follow Lucy and Josh, who are in competition for a job within their office. They work for a publishing house, and it's definitely a hate to love romance. I really liked the fact that the romance didn't consume it entirely, but it was still up there, so there was plot in this that made sense. It wasn't heavily plotted, but it all just kind of worked together. I think that's where I'm getting at. It was a good balance of romance and plot and character story. The characters in this felt very real and fleshed out, and I think that's why I also enjoyed it. I don't typically read a lot of romance, but I'm really glad I read this one. I had started off with this author with Second First Impressions, and I really enjoyed that. That one's got a more cozy romance vibe to this one, which is more hate to lovers, but both are very good. I think Second First Impressions is still my heart's favorite, but this is a close second. So now I know that this is a very good author to pull from, and I will probably read more of hers down the track. Did I say this got 4 stars? I think I did. But yeah, I know what the fuss is about now. I'm happy to say that I understand it. Oh, I just want to say too about the previous book, Untamed. I love the mantra of we can do hard things, which came up a lot in Untamed. I think I'm going to put that into my own brain meats from now on and use that as well, because we can do hard things. I love that. That's how that book inspired me. That's what I pulled from it as well. So just that little aside. Perfect. Next up, we have the first graphic novel of the month, and that is Lore Olympus Volume 1 by Rachel Smith. It's here. This started off as a webcomic, I'm fairly sure, and now they've put the first volume into a bind-up, and I loved the art style of this. I liked the callbacks to Greek mythology, because this is following the Greek gods pantheon, and yeah, I can see the hype for it for sure. There is a really handy content warning that the author puts in at the start as well for abusive relationships and things like that, because we are covering the Greek gods, and we know that they were not brilliant towards their women or towards anyone that wasn't a male Greek god deity. whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it got 3.5 or 4 stars. I love the color palette used throughout it. I would probably pick up another volume. I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence. Like, I did enjoy it. We'll see how it goes. Then the third to last book that I finished in February was another audiobook, and that was of Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This one got me in the feels again. I should just trust that this author manages to do that. I've read The House on the Cerulean Sea by them as well, and this followed very similar lines, so I'm not mad about it either. I feel like this author is purposely writing contemporary fantasy, so just a nudge of fantasy but in a contemporary setting, and they are soft gay stories, and I appreciate that so much. These are very, very heartwarming. The characters' growth throughout both of the books that I've read by this author are very, very well done and believable, and I just appreciate them for what they are. So in Under the Whispering Door, we follow Wallace, our main character, who has just died. But he hasn't yet passed to the other side. Instead, he gets sent to this halfway point, which is this tea shop in the middle of nowhere where he meets Hugo, along with some other really brilliant side characters, and it's pretty much about him regaining his humanity after he has passed, and it gave me goosebumps at points when I was reading it. I will say, much like the other novel that I've read by TJ Klune, it took me a little bit to get into the story. I think when the characters start to shift in their mindset is when I really start to enjoy the writing and the themes and the storyline of these books, but it was beautiful. Once we got past the asshole barrier with Wallace, I just loved it so much. This is also a standalone, and it got 4 stars from me. I think I was nearly crying in certain points. It was just very heartfelt, like very, very heartfelt. The plot was also quite reasonable as well, so it all came together into this nice little bundle, and I'm really glad that I picked it up. I'm glad that I persevered through the first 50 odd pages because I was wondering if it was going to turn around, and I'm glad to say it did. Then we have the second graphic novel of the month, and that is Allergic by Megan Wagner Lloyd and Michelle Me Nutter. This was pretty good, I will say. I went into this expecting it just to be about a girl that was allergic to dogs and she really wants one, but it was more than that. So in this one, we follow Maggie, who is, yes, looking to get her first pet because where she sits within her family, she's feeling a little bit displaced. So her 2 parents and her younger twin brothers are expecting another baby. And as she's the oldest, she doesn't know what this will mean for her within the family, and she's feeling, yeah, a little bit disjointed from it. And it's kind of her thinking that maybe something of her own will fix that. And as we go through this one, we learn about allergies. She starts getting shots to try and become more immune or just not as compromised to like dust and hair and things like that. And yeah, I ended up really enjoying this one. The art style as well, very, very comforting. The colors and everything were just, it was not so much muted, but just easy to get through. Like the art style complemented the story a lot, and I loved the end message of this as well and where the character ended up, especially with the new baby coming into it as well. So a good middle grade graphic novel, especially if you know someone who's adding another family member and some other family members might not be feeling that 100%. I think this is really, really good to discuss all of the things that come along with that. And then second to last, we have The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. This book surprised me probably the most out of the entire reading month, and that is because this is the sequel to The Prison Healer, which I read last year. I read an early copy of that. It was being hyped everywhere. She's kind of the next Sarah J Maas type of thing, or at least if you've enjoyed Sarah J Maas, then you should enjoy something from Lynette Noni. But The Prison Healer let me down. I did not enjoy it as much as I was expecting to, especially with all the blurbs on it and everything. But this sequel, it came up again on Libby and I borrowed the audiobook and it really stepped up. This got so much stronger than the first book. My problems with the first book were that it took pretty much most of the book to get to the main thing to happen. And while there was this trial element throughout, I think the main character had to go through like 3 different trials or something or rather, it always felt like how was she getting through them? It didn't really make sense. And then the ending happened and there was this cliffhanger and I thought, well, if this comes up somewhere, I might consume it, and I'm really glad I did. This one had plot throughout instead of just at the last bit, and it also further developed relationships. The characters themselves as well got more screen time. I actually really started to enjoy them. And while there is a YA romance aspect to this, there's also a lot of conflict going on as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. This is YA fantasy, teen fantasy, if that wasn't kind of clear. And in this one, we follow Kiva, I think, who in the first book is in a prison and she's been in there for nearly 10 years and you find out why. In this world as well, there is instability between the ruling royal family faction and the rebels. Conflict going on there. There's neighboring countries as well, but you don't really hear much from them. And then in this sequel, you do. You get a little bit more from the ones around it. And now I'm really keen for the 3rd book to come out, which I think releases May 2022, so mid this year, because I feel like we're going to pull those other countries in even more. And it's just this really cool thing now. This 2nd book saved it for me. So much stronger. I love being surprised by books, and I love when the author does pull off a oh my god moment, because Lynette Noni did that here a few times. And I've been saying I read 8 books this entire time. I actually read 9 because I also finished this one. This is Arthurian Legends by Rosalind Kirvan. This is a book that might not 100% count because I've been reading this for, no joke, probably between 9 and 12 months. I can't remember. I picked it up for a random readathon somewhere and it's just been sitting on my unread books pile for a while now, and I'm really glad that I finished it. This is one of those cases where it's not a textbook, but it's explaining legends behind a popular legend, myth, whatever. So in this one, King Arthur, and this is short stories highlighting certain key players and certain key stories of King Arthur. But I'd never finished it because it doesn't read like a traditional regular novel, but it also doesn't read like a textbook. It's kind of split in between. So you have the tales translated, and then you also flip to notes on the story, which the author has also compiled. So she says where she got the stories from, the important things to note, and it's more educational, and I really do enjoy that. It always takes me a little while to finish things like this and to actually put it in my brain. So I'm very proud of myself for finally completing this. And yeah, I love this copy as well. It is this beautiful illustration style with the foil here, and I'm happy to have this copy. If you want a good resource for fairy tales or myths or legends, definitely check out Rosalind Kirvan because she's where it's at. She's a really good source to have. I don't really know what to rate that one either. I don't really rate myths or legends tellings because it's something so ancient. It's pulling from all these different things. So it's not the author's own work entirely for me to then criticize it. It just feels weird. So just finished that one. Very happy. But yes, those were the 9 books that I actually finished in February. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these, or alternatively a book that you're hoping to pick up this month in March. And that's going to be it. Don't forget to chuck a like on this video if you haven't already, and consider subscribing to my channel because it makes me do a little happy dance. And I will see you in another one. Bye!